Google gods be with us. The connection doesn't work too well. Ed Sternagel, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but whatever. We'll fix it at the other end. Say good morning, Dick.
Good morning, Dick. Good morning, everybody.
And Frank.
Good morning, Dick. We're glad everybody's here.
You know, I think more of the viewers aren't old enough to remember Rowan Martin and the laugh-in, and it was always say goodnight, Dick, and that's our play off this.
That's right.
Morning, Mark.
Good morning, Dick. Good morning, everyone. How are you?
Good morning, Phil.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
And Ed. Good morning, Ed.
Can you hear?
If you can hear us. Yeah, we can hear you. We'll say good morning. Okay, cruising right along. A little update. We have. I've been working with Frank in his new. What would you call it, Frank?
It's called 27 seconds. Is what it's called.
Well, every time you say 27 seconds, I always think of 30 seconds over Tokyo. You know, but so the 27-second hook concept that and we're going to talk about that today, I think. It really revamps the way that you do things. And part of the conversation that we had this last weekend was, gee, we're not thinking big enough. Frank was working with us, Dick and myself in particular, on this new approach in networking. And of course, that's physical in the real world. And I said, geez, we're not thinking big enough. We need to take it over to the website world, the web, and then make our journey into the social media. So my show and tell today, I want to share, I revamped my entire website from the educational site that it was into something more silly. So let me see if I can share my screen with everybody. And everybody let me know when they see that.
See ya.
We see it.
All right.
I see.
Besides the brilliant colors that you probably need a set of sunglasses to look at, I completely revamped my site. Normally on your front page, you get a sales letter or some information of something. In this case, we actually have a video. And this is my Doug and Annalisa story that Frank helped me with. And then down here, Frank also helped me with the 4 pillars of success. And I'll play these. We won't be able to hear them, but you'll be able to see I used a sketching program to do this. And it really captures your attention. And it's talking in my ears, so it's difficult for me to talk over myself here, but everybody gets the idea. And basically what we're doing with this approach is trying to get one of 3 things to either happen off a website. Either they're going to pick up the phone and call you, they're going to email you, or in not in this case, but in other cases, to purchase something. And so these are scientifically designed to tell a story that captures their imagination, and more importantly, they chase you as opposed to you chase them. That is the idea. Frank, did I lose anything on that?
No, it's the goal is to attract, not pursue. We want you to be the pursuer, the pursued as opposed to pursuer.
Pursuee, right? The pursuit.
Right.
Exactly. And so, in the past, if you asked me what I did, I would say, oh, I do websites and social media. Boring at best, factual, yes. But no imagination, and like Frank always says, everybody that hears this says, well, I've already got a website and I have Webmaster, so what next? But when I come out with my Doug and Annalisa story, which is I have these Canadian clients named Doug and Annalisa, and they had a website for 10 years that absolutely produced nothing, $0 in sales for the entire 10 years. After working with me for 6 weeks, their first year's salary off the web was $185,000. and it has never gotten below that. It's gotten above that through the years. About 4 years old now, or maybe 5 now. So that's a story that leaves a person stopping to think about, can he do that for me too? And and there was a networking group that was actually hostile to me for over a year that I did this story on, and at the end of my little talk, 50% of them were standing in a line trying to get to me. Does it work? You bet it does. And then, like I say, the logical extension is that is moving it to a website. And like I said, completely revamped my website. We're going to try this approach in a video way on my testimonials page, the about page, and maybe even frequently asked questions page. But again, using this 27-second hook concept of Frank's. Frank, why don't you, for the viewers that aren't familiar with it, why don't you talk just a little bit about that?
Sure. It's a culmination of research I've been doing officially and unofficially since I got into sales back in 1978. I just had there had to be a better way, and then the internet when it came out in '93, and then the iPhone in 2007 dramatically changed how people, your future customers, research, think, act, and pay attention to what you say. And if we have not changed our marketing and prospecting approach to fit the way they're acting today, we will do a lot less than we should be doing. And so my goal in this project, which we're working on right now with a bunch of people here, is that we come up with a way, and we're doing it face to face now. Peter and I are working on the web and the social media side, where you can attract the people who need you the most in 27 seconds or less. 27 seconds or less.
That's faster than an elevator ride, Frank.
There you go. Again, I studied elevator pitches for years, and I did traveling for 14 straight years. Did 1 million miles one year on Delta, just on Delta alone, and stayed in hotels many nights. Never once on an elevator, and somebody asked me what I did. So I don't know where the hell that came from, but anyway. So and then I have this quote which I'm going to incorporate into my piece. It is not enough to be great at what you do. And we all spend a lot of time being great at what we do. You need to talk about it in a way that is interesting to others so that they're curious and they want to hear more. And that's the goal of the 27 seconds. Anyway, so that's my thing of what the 27 seconds is all about, Peter.
Yeah, okay, good. And I'm kind of like Mikey likes it. For those who remember the commercial, Mikey likes the cereal. If Mikey likes it, everybody's going to like it. So I don't believe anything I say. I go prove it to myself. And you know, the data thus so far. What have I done? 3 of these things. Networking events in one fashion or the other. Told the Doug and Annalise's story. I also told the Pillars story once. But it just grabs them right away. There's no question about that. And you know where we go with that.
Well, Peter, I think it brings up a lot of great interest in what you're doing, because the first thing I want to ask you, like I did the other day, is, well, how can you help me make that money? And I think that's the first question people ask now. How can you do that for me?
Right, and who wouldn't want that to be done?
Right.
You know, and it's not going to happen to everybody. That's for sure. The web is so different. You know, it depends on the product. Depends on your approach, how consistent you are at doing exactly what has to get done. One of the other stories that I talk about quite frequently is when I moved to the desert, and almost nobody in their right mind moves to the desert, and I was certainly not in my right mind. But I took 2 years off to study how the internet marketing guys who've got horrible reputation, snake oil salesmen and selling informational products per se, how to, and the dry eraser marking, by the way, Sharpie. So mapping all that out and exactly how it all ties together became talks about the 4 pillars. For those who want to head on over there and watch that, that's what that's all about. So it's pretty cool. And Dick, you used it the other night. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just started with Frank, so I haven't really developed the 27-second version of what I say, but I did use it, and I used Peter and I had discussed uh, trying to go more for the close at these meetings rather than using it as an entree to make a call the next day and then you don't get a call back. So I found it very effective. Frank and I were talking to a lady there about some needs she may have from a legal perspective, and in using that, I came away with an appointment, which I was a little bit more aggressive in saying, let's not wait, let's not wait for you to call me or whatever, and so the process works. It works well, and I talked, Frank and I spent an hour yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, and starting the process of formalizing, 27-second hook there that I can use, and he gave me some suggestions of how to start it off, which I hadn't thought of, and so I've been kind of running that through my head right now. But there's no doubt it works, and I think when you're at these networking meetings and there's 60, 70, 80 people all vying to give out their business cards, and I think that they consider a success if they give out the most business cards. I think being able to make yourself different and differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd really helps a great deal, and I think this will do that.
Right. And everybody's got a story, and for me, it's, believe it or not, it's tough for me to talk about myself like that. It's not the first thing I would normally go do, and so Frank has had to drag me kicking and screaming into this 27-second hook thing in a way. Although I did make Frank listen to my entire freaking history that I talked to Raytheon over the weekend. He had to go listen to that so he could. I don't want a story not to be told. Frank's a coach, so and I don't take coaches very often. And Frank's my coach, so I got to give him your best shot.
And that's one of my challenges too. I consider myself a private person, and I don't really like telling people my story about my life. Especially when I get to meet somebody. So I'm working on this too, Frank, of opening myself up to people, and I think slowly but surely I'm coming around with that.
Well, if I can interject,
sure.
There are 8 unique, distinct types of 27 seconds stories that we can tell. Only one of them is about you personally, and that one will never be said first because people don't care yet. They just met you. They know you have an Italian-sounding last name. Maybe you're Italian, maybe you're not. They don't want to hear you that personal story. What they want to hear is a story about what you did for somebody like them. That's the first, the Doug and Annalisa story. That's the first story that Peter talks about, and then he talked about another story about a computer repair store the other day. But you tell me in 27 seconds what you did for somebody like me. My first thought is, if I believe you, and there's no reason for me not to believe you, because you should lie, then you're out anyway. But if I believe you, my first thought is, damn, can he do that for me? And my second thought is, how soon can I meet with him to find out? And that's the 2 reactions you want from 27 seconds. And there's a way. By the way,
that's a great approach.
Yeah, Peter and I. Peter introduced me to a gentleman who remains anonymous. He should remain anonymous this morning. And I described something. Everybody everybody on this podcast, and Ed, we just met, so I assume I know of your background, so I know you have that. Everybody on this podcast has personal stories about their lives, which, by the way, is only one of the 8, and we've saved those for later, but has personal stories about the business, what they do, and why they're successful and how they've been successful. I call that like a pantry, and we're going to be like Emeril Lagasse. We're going to go into the pantry, pull out this story, this story, this story, and create a dish that's going to be called Your 27 Seconds that will attract the people who need you the most. That's
we can't forget the BAM.
The BAM. Okay. Well, BAM is when you get your appointment. BAM, that was good. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. So
Yeah, I think Dick and I are working on the BAM part of that. I think get that order.
Well, I'm telling you, Frank, seriously, I can't tell you. You're giving me little chills because I love working with you, and I think you can help me a lot, Frank. Thank you so much.
So, Frank, what are these 8 steps or these 8 stories?
I'm sorry, what?
What are these 8 27-second stories? Could you go over those?
We will in a minute. Let's get on. They're right here. We will in a minute. How about that?
I love it.
How about that? So, Frank.
Yeah.
Frank, why don't you swing over to do your twin, and then we'll come back to this topic because obviously it's very interesting.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second to do my twin here. You know when I'm getting my prop ready here.
Yes, we're getting our sound prop going.
Yeah, because I like the prop. It's my idiosyncrasy. It's my weirdness thing that I do, but keeps me interested. Twin, this week in the news. Okay, shut up here. How do I shut this thing off here? Hold on. I can't. Okay. Twin, this week in the news. Small business lessons. This week's twin is, hey, Tom Allison. Thank you for the small business lesson. Who the heck is Tom Allison? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Tom. He's British born, and he attended college in the United States, but he never graduated. Why didn't he graduate? Well, while he was in college, Tom, being very entrepreneurial, started his first business venture, and he created a product that was in very, very high demand, and it was going gangbusters. He produced fake IDs. You can imagine how popular he was. Well, what happened is the authorities caught up to him, and he fled back to the UK to avoid prosecution, but he never graduated. So why am I talking about Tom Allison today? Let me tell you why. Tom is drastically disrupting Amazon's and Google's online shopping plans. Disrupting them. How? Let me give you some background. Today's consumer can purchase anything from anywhere in seconds. As a matter of fact, online retail shopping is a $262 billion industry, and it's growing about 10% per year. Matter of fact, if you look at the stocks of brick and mortar stores, they're suffering from a lack of foot traffic. But they're trying to find, how do I adjust to the new world? Okay? But there's one big hole in online shopping, and it's called delivery. Delivery of the items bought online matters. It is the last interaction that a retailer has with that customer. Amazon, Jeff Bezos called it the other day on TV, the last mile. And we'll talk about what he's going to do to that. As a matter of fact, the delivery experience is often the main reason why customers will buy or will not buy from a retailer in the future. It's the last interaction they have. If it's not pleasant, that's the one thing they'll remember. That's how critical it is. As a matter of fact, and online shoppers, e-commerce sites, 2/3 of all shopping carts are abandoned before purchase, restrictions, or the cost. That's how critical that delivery portion is, and it's the last one that's being tackled right now. Tom Allison is disrupting that. Okay. Currently, most shipping for online purchases is delivered what's called a hub and spoke model. I'll give you an analysis of hub and spoke. Federal Express. is a hub and spoke model. If I want to send an overnight package from India to Peter down in Salton Sea, it's about what, 15, 20 miles, Peter? Maybe 25
about
miles?
that.
About 25 miles. I take my package and I deliver it, I drop it off to a designated area. A truck goes around this Palm Springs area, picks it up from all the designated areas, drops it off in Palm Springs. A truck picks it up in Palm Springs, drives it to Ontario. A plane picks it up in Ontario and flies it to Memphis, to their distribution center. It goes to a distribution center, gets sorted, gets back on an airplane a few hours later, and flown back that same night from Memphis to Ontario. A truck picks it up in Ontario, drives it to Palm Springs by 5 a.m. By 5 a.m., the delivery truck picks up at the Palm Springs Distribution Center and delivers it to my house by 10:30 to noon, depending on how much I want to pay. That's called the hub and spoke model. Now, on a much smaller scale, that's the same what many online retailers are doing today. Tom Allison said, there's got to be a better way. Now, it sounds like a lot of work, but FedEx is very profitable. At one time, in fact, UPS was a customer of mine when I was in the software. Ed talked about software business. Yeah, at the time, UPS was the most profitable airline. It's no food, no drink, and no bathrooms. So, but they were no profitable airline. It is very efficient and very profitable for deliveries over 10 miles. However, 75% of all online retail purchases are delivered within 10 miles of the source. So there's a conflict. So Amazon and Mr. Jeff Bezos had this great idea. He was going to dominate the online shopping arena with massive warehouses logically spread throughout the U.S. He was going to charge the lowest price possible and deliver them as quickly as possible. In fact, he eventually wants to use drones. That's how critical the delivery piece is. That has not yet been approved. The pros for Jeff Bezos: he has no brick and mortar stores, but he has warehouses and low prices. The cons: he's got massive millions and millions of dollars in warehouses, inventory, staff, and delivery commitments. He hasn't figured out the last mile yet. Google comes across with all of their millions and billions of dollars, and they say, hey, I got a better idea. I'm going to allow a consumer to go online to Google and purchase whatever they want online. And then I will search the inventory of local retailers to find that item. And then I have a fleet of Prius cars with drivers in them that will drive to that store, pick up the inventory, and deliver it to the consumer that day. Oh, interesting. So a little bit better than Google, than Amazon. Google does not have to carry any stock like Amazon, but Google is at the mercy of the store inventory for the item to be in stock. It has to buy the cars and pay a bunch of drivers to sit around, wait to pick up, to deliver the merchandise. And currently Google is only operating in San Francisco. And Tom Allison said, wait a minute. And there's this kid, this kid that had a fleet US because of fake IDs, right? He says, I got a better idea. And I don't have the millions of dollars that Google and Amazon have. I have a better idea that will work with brick and mortar stores. And oh, by the way, Mr. Brick and Mortar Store, this will give you a way to compete with Amazon and Google Shopping Express. And he came up with something called Shuttle. S-H-U-T-L is what it is. These brick and mortar stores already have their online e-commerce site, because if not, they won't work. Okay, and they know and notify the customer immediately if the item is available. That's one side of the coin. On the other side of the coin, every metropolitan area of any size already has a number of couriers in that area, either bike, cars, or trucks, that service these metropolitan areas. However, none of them individually is big enough to dominate that area. Tom Allison combined all of those local couriers similar to what Uber does. Uber has all the individual car owners. Tom Allison did the same thing with the couriers, and it allows each retailer to offer their online customers to select Shuttle as their delivery option. If they do, Shuttle immediately notifies the consumer when the item will be delivered to their location, whether it be their home or their office, within 90 minutes or less. The average delivery time is 17 minutes, and also with the cost. Okay. Plus, Shuttle allows the consumer, with an app on their smartphone, to track the progress of the bike car or truck, picking up the item at the warehouse, seeing which street they're on, what corner they're taking, that type of thing, until it gets to their house. That is awesome. That is awesome. Tom Allison has no inventory. Tom Allison has no cars, bikes, or trucks. Tom Allison is the app that did what Uber did. Shuttle offers 2 delivery options. One is called ASAP, which says, hey, I will tell you exactly how long it's going to take me, and you can pick the couriers, that type of thing, and deliver it on time. Or they have something called Win. You know what? It's not convenient for you. Tell you what, I'd like my item delivered tomorrow from 1 to 2 p.m. because I know I'm going to be home at that time. That immediately eliminates our delivery truck will be there from noon to 4 p.m. We hope somebody's there to receive it. Eliminates that all completely. All completely. The small business lesson here. Too many small business owners, myself included, and Peter is working with me on this, and I thank him for that, accept the limitations that other people see as gospel. The fact is, if we would just step outside our box or our forest or whatever it is, the solution is often right under our nose. We are just not looking for it. Steve Jobs, who obviously I admire as a business person, once said, and I paraphrase Steve. He says, and he's a prime innovator. He says, you know what? He says, innovation is nothing more than taking what is already available and looking at it from a different point of view. Every small business owner has the same ability. Your business breakthrough, no matter what business you're in, is just waiting for you to open the eyes of your creative mind. Oh, by the way, a little PS. Shuttle is based in London, and they control 75% of the market. eBay just bought Shuttle and is now bringing it to the U.S. Good luck, Jeff Bezos of Amazon and Eric Schmidt of Google. And gentlemen, that's my twin for this week. Thank you.
Any questions on that? Huh. Okay, well, there you go.
I want to say something real quick, though, Frank.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think what you're talking about is absolutely correct, and especially on the B&B level, from business to business. I did wholesale for about 2 years, and one of the question I've heard the most was, "What's your turnaround?" And what that means is, how fast can you get my product? Can you get the product to my business? And I think what you're talking about is going to revolutionize the B&B side of things too, because businesses needs their products today, and they need it quick. So I think what you're talking about is going to revolutionize the B&B business also.
Yeah, and
just turnaround is concerned.
And on that same comment, Tom Allison, and he's proven to be able to do this in Great Britain and in London, England. He's working with these retailers, and with the retailer's subsidy, he is getting the cost of having it delivered on shuttle about the same as the cost of having it delivered any other way. So if you're a consumer, and I can go to store A and have it delivered within 17 minutes to 90 minutes, or I can go to store B and have it delivered tomorrow or next Monday, where am I going to go shopping?
The first one.
Right? It's people in the connected world want instant gratification, and you know what? They're willing to pay for it.
Sure.
And again, I admire Tom Allison. Again, all the people I talk about, I admire. Because I wouldn't talk about them, but I think we can learn so much from what Tom did to disrupt the billionaires called Jeff Bezos, Amazon, and Google. I love it when the small guy wins. When a small guy kicks their pants. I guess is a good way to put it. Right on.
I'll give you the fist, Frank.
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Awesome.
So swinging back over to our previous topic and getting more into it, Frank, do you want to go down through the 8 27-second pieces?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, gladly. Yeah. These are stories that you tell and you can. And again, my original plan was face to face or kneecap to kneecap, as somebody put it. And thanks to Peter, we're now expanding it both to your web copy and your social media copy. When people ask you what you do, you know what the last thing they want to hear is? What you do, because they just don't care. What they're asking is it ever possible that you could do something that would be beneficial to me? It's got to be all about them and not you. So there are 8 responses, and you should have these in your warehouse, 27-second warehouse, that I develop with my clients. And you pull out the right one, and depending on how they react, you pull out the other appropriate one. And the goal is always twofold. Have them wanting more and getting the appointment. Okay? If you tell them everything you know, there's no need for me to meet with you. And if there's no need for me to meet with you, I will delay the purchase because I don't have any real pressure. And if you tell me everything you know, and when you do that, you tell me stuff I don't know, you know what happens? I get confused. And every confused consumer reacts the same way. They delay the purchase. And if they delay the purchase, you lose because they could buy from somebody else. So here are the 8 types. Number 1, to quote Doug and Annalisa, an individual success story you had with one of your customers. And it must include numbers, a combination of numbers, time frame, and dollars or percentages. Okay, it must include that, because let me tell you again. I'm going to go a little bit longer, Peter, if that's okay.
Sure.
The mind says when you say words, I've heard the words before. I know what you're going to, and it anticipates what you're going to say, and it shuts off its brain because I know what you're going to say, and I can save some memory doing that. The minute you include numbers in a story, people say, what does he mean by $0? What does he mean by 6 months? 185,000. It interrupts the conversation these people are having in their brain. And until you do that, you do not have their attention. If you don't have their attention, you won't get their emotion. If you don't get their emotion, you will not get the appointment. If you don't get the appointment, you will not get the order. That all makes sense, like dominoes, right? That's number 1. Number 2.
Makes perfect sense, Frank.
Number 2, you've got to paint verbal pictures. You've got to paint verbal pictures. Metaphors, okay? When you're dealing with, again, I'm not a techie guy, even though I wasn't, Ed was talking about, I started the software business in 1969. I don't know if you were still in grammar school then or something, but that's when I started in the software business. For people like me who I'm not a techie person, the minute you talk about tech stuff, I don't know what you're talking about. But you paint me a picture that I can see in my mind, and if I can relate to that picture in my mind, I'm interested. If I can't relate to that picture in my mind, I'll be polite and ignore whatever you say after that. Okay? So you've got to paint, and there's ways to paint pictures. 27 seconds or less. Okay? The third one is tap into a familiar pain. And let me give you an example. You know what it's like when your website that you're so proud of is generating $0 for the last 3 years? People say, and they start thinking, if they're qualified prospect, I can relate to that. Well, what I do is, and then you hit them. Then you hit them with your uniqueness. And they're going to say, wow, yeah, I can relate to the pain because he brought it up in my mind. I can feel, matter of fact, I can feel it. Oh, you know what it's like when you and your wife fight more times than you kiss? If I'm a relationship coach, right? I can relate to that. Anyways, and everyone has in their pantry a bunch of stuff we can do. Number 4 is where you do a group thing. Well, you know, and I'll go back to Peter. Most of my computer repair stores, on average, grow their business by 113% in the next 6 months, and whatever the numbers are. And people say, well, if I'm a computer repair store, and you know what they are because you just met them, they can say, wow, I wonder if you can do that for me.
Frank?
Yes, sir.
let me just give a show and tell. The other
Show and
night
tell.
when we were at the networking event, we ran into a brand new computer repair group, right? And I immediately launched directly into my story where in fact, I guess it was 3 years ago now, I took over basically a computer repair store, and I had to mute you, Phil. There was a lot of air going on there, so when you go to talk, unmute yourself. But so when I took over the store, they were only making $1,500 a month for the last 2 years. And within the first 20 days of taking over that store, we made $11,200 in sales. And that kind of pressure's kept up ever since. And Frank, what did they say, or what did they look like when I said that?
Well, it was a husband and wife, and I was standing next to the wife, and she goes, "Whoa." And all she was thinking is, if I could get our store producing $11,000 a month, we'd be so much better off than we are today. Right. And the wife dramatically reacted to that. Yeah, they will eventually buy from you. As a matter of fact, if they have other computer repair owners that they're familiar with, they're going to tell them your story, because it was concise, it was short, and it had numbers. If you said, I dramatically grew their business, who the hell cares? But you say, I went from 1,500 to 11,000 a month, bang, that hits me right here.
Absolutely. That's better than 113% growth.
A lot better. Plus, it's a lot more believable. Okay.
And one thing on that, though, Frank, how it works. The other day I had an appointment with a client, and we were talking, and they were asking, well, how many hits do you get to your website, And I had the analytics app on my phone, and instead of saying how many hits I get to my website, I showed them on my app how many hits, all the analytics of my website, and they liked that. And they said, wow, that's pretty good, Mark.
Yeah.
So what you're saying...
Remember, it's not hits, Mark. It's unique visitors, which is exactly what you showed them.
That. And yes. I had it. I have that on my analytics.
Yes,
now, again, you and I, we understand that, but the everyday person doesn't really know the uniques. But again, on my analytics, it shows hits, uniques, so they were able to see all that. But exactly what you just said, Frank. If I would have told her, oh, I get 2,000 hits a month, big deal, like you're saying, right, Frank? But when I showed her on my app on my phone, she went, wow, that's pretty good, Mark.
There you go. It's the power of numbers. Numbers interrupt the conversation going on in that person's head.
Very good.
They don't know what the number means. They don't know if it's going to be bigger or smaller. What's the words that follow the number? All of a sudden, they've got to give you the one thing they don't want to give you, which is their attention. And if you get their attention, you can gain their interest, create an emotional experience, and then get that type of thing. So, okay. Number 5. Are we okay on time? Okay, 5.
Oh, yeah.
Number 5 is there's a story about. Now, this is the only one that's about you. It's your personal transformation. Peter has a wonderful story about when he was 6 years old and a bully in the grammar school in the schoolyard. Everyone has a personal story. That again, man, Mark, you don't have to reveal anything that's dark and you're uncomfortable with. But there's nothing more than standing in line. I just thought of a story when I was first married. I stood in line at a tire store, and the guy belittled me in front of strangers. And I remember I said to myself, I will never let that happen again. And just thinking about it, I can relieve the pain I had when the guy belittled me waiting in line at a tire store. Okay? And that's, again, but it transformed me in the way I treat my customers and the way I treat everybody I meet that I care about, and I care about my customers. So, personal transformation, 27 seconds. The next one is, and this is another one a little bit about you, is that you can talk about, since you've done whatever you've done, how much your business has grown, so you create credibility. Okay. The 7th one is when people say, "Oh, I already have," or whatever it is that you do. I already have a reputation management thing. I already have an attorney. I already have a web developer. I have whatever it is that you do. There's a way to make them say, "Wow, I wish I was doing business with Phil or with Mark or with Dick." It's called Raise the Bar, and we talk on that. And I left the best for last. And this is, I think, the most profitable, but you don't say it first. Okay? Everybody has competition in what everybody does here. Okay? You have your own special sauce, your own secret thing, your own thing that nobody does what you do the way you do it because no one is like you. Okay? I work with clients to package it and name it and make it a proprietary process, product, sequence, series, wording, whatever it is. Mine is 27 seconds. How many people do elevator pitches? All over the world they do it. Mine is 27 seconds with my own approach to it. When you package it and name it, you do two things. You have no competition because no one else can do what you do the way you do it. And the best part is, when there's no competition, there's no price negotiation. They can't compare it to anything. And those are the 8 types of 27 seconds. That's it.
I think I can do that.
Very good.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we talk about too, Frank, is that, okay, so we do develop these with you. We got to put them into practice. Fight like we train. I blew it 2 meetings ago on Raise the Bar. Completely blew it. And I was in the bathroom, I hate to admit, when I realized, oh, I couldn't believe I just did that. I had the opportunity to, this person was working with another company on his website. And I don't particularly like that company for various reasons. And I got hung up in my head thinking about how am I going to say anything that's positive about this company when I don't like much of what they do. Instead of raising the bar and saying simply, wow, you're working with them, then you must be enjoying hundreds of thousands of dollars of sales a year off your website, which in fact we know isn't happening.
Right.
I completely blew it, Frank, but that will never, ever happen again. So part of, I think, one of the things we've got to talk about is in this kind of training, you practice. And you get these things down. You practice in a non world that it doesn't matter if you screw it up or not, but you gotta practice these types of things and sales and whatnot. So we should have some guidelines later on about that, I would think.
Yes. And to quote, I don't know if it was Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or Tom Brady said this: practice does not make perfect. What's that big noise?
That's Phil. Well, I just muted again. Phil's making all kinds of noise.
Okay, practice.
Knock that off, Phil.
Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you practice until it's perfect in your mind and you're comfortable, and then it becomes a habit. It becomes second nature, and it just flows. It just flows, and that takes. Again, if this was easy, and all of your competitors could do it, this would be worthless. Well, my guess is that less than 25% of the people will do this, and that's great news because the 75% we don't want to do it. To hell with them. We'll beat their pants off in every interaction because we'll look different, sound different, and be different, and get the business. So that's okay.
And on that point, right, Peter? How we train, we train like how we're going to compete. Yes. So we don't train. It's like what you're saying, Frank. We don't train in an easy way. We train how we compete. So then when we compete, we're already in that mode.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying, Frank.
Yes.
In martial arts, and I do disarms and stuff with real weapons because that's what you're going to be faced with out there. And everybody else in martial arts does disarms with plastic guns and wooden guns. And when you're staring down a gun barrel for the first time like that, it can be rather unnerving. And so you will fight like you train. And I think the same thing is true, in our practice for our pitches and stuff like that. We need to practice in that environment, or simulated environment, close to the real thing as possible.
Right. And when you do practice, you want someone who is doing the mirroring with you, the practicing with you, to do everything they can to make you stumble.
Yep.
Because if they give you the softballs, they don't throw softballs in the major leagues, unless you're in the softball league. But yeah, that type of thing. You want somebody to be the hard person, the stubborn person, the I don't care about you person. And by the way, and the goal is not to attract everyone, because no one's satisfied. The goal is to attract those who need you the most. And if you can light the fire in their emotional brain about, man, can you do this for me? It's a lot easier. They will pursue you. They will pursue you.
Let me share a story. I've owned dojos most of my life, and those are martial arts schools, okay? And you answer the phone a particular way. And dojos will actually call other dojos and basically try to upset you in front of your clients. Terrible thing, but they do that. So I was on the mat. It was a 2 o'clock, 2:30 time, a bunch of tiny tigers out there and whatnot, mothers watching me work with their kids. And the phone rings, and I turn the class over to the second in command, and I grab the phone, and this guy on the other side, other end says, I want to come up there and kick you in your blank face. And I said, wow, that's great. I haven't been kicked in my blank face for a long time. Would you like to come on Tuesday at 2 o'clock or Thursday at 2 o'clock? Which of the two would you prefer? Click, hung up. Couldn't get there. But we play that ring game where you learn to answer the phone. You know, I mean, we could play it right now if we wanted to. I'd go ring, and somebody'd answer the phone, and then I'd ask them questions. And then you critique them. And that's the same kind of game that we've got to play, I think, in this networking event practice that we've got to get. Another ring game example is ring, answer the phone. You know, Anaheim Hills Martial Arts Academy. Hi, this is Peter. How may I help you? That rolled my tongue like old days. And they say, you know, do you teach Taekwondo there? Well, the fact of the matter is we don't. But if you say no, they go click. What you want to ask them is, well, what do you know about Taekwondo? Well, I've heard their kicks are really good. Well, if you love their kicks, you're going to go wild for our kicks. Would you like to come in at 2 o'clock on Tuesday or 2 o'clock on Thursday? Which do you prefer? You know, and so, Mark, you're nodding your head. It's the same thing when we get to these network things. We're going to have to give the pitch of the $185,000, and you know, Frank will say, so what? Well, now what do I say? You know, it's like, well, okay, all the steam is now out of my engine. There's no wind in my sails. How do I recover from that? I said, well, maybe $185,000 doesn't make you get you excited. Would double that make you excited? Maybe that's how I come back. I don't know. So, anyway, what do you think, Frank?
Remember, this is a qualifying. If the guy's not impressed with 185,000, and from 0 to 185,000, he's just a hard ass. And I said, well, I would find a way to find somebody else that I could. You know, we don't want to chase blind alleys, dark out blind alleys. It may be interesting, but it's no fun. It's
well,
no fun.
let me say another story. Okay, and this may be very applicable for what we're talking about. So I had this particular person come in to the dojo, and she wanted to enroll her son, and ours was $68 a month for like unlimited classes. Okay.
Very inexpensive.
Oh yeah. Well, you drop them off at 2 and you pick them up at 10 o'clock at night. We were the cheapest babysitting service in Anaheim Hills. Now, once you realize that. So the dojo down the street was $65. So this woman was beating me up for $3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and just working me over for $3.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I swung around to scarcity play, and I said, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't want to or imply that you could enroll your child in this school. We have a 2-year waiting list, so if you want to put your name on the waiting list, that's fine. Otherwise, go down to the school for $65. Well,
I love it.
Completely turned around. She goes, well, what I got? Wait a minute. I can't sign him up here? Well, you can sign him up on a waiting list. Sure. but you can't get them in the school. Can't take them. Sorry, got a waiting list. 2 years worth. Well, a 2-year waiting list. How's that possible? Well, it's very simple. We have this unlimited thing that you can go drop them off at 2 o'clock and pick them up at 10 o'clock, right? Here go my benefits again, right? We teach them math. We teach them science. I'm an engineer. Not only do we teach them how to defend themselves and protect their family and feel good about themselves, but we help them with their homework. Now, we just can't let every kid in here. Then they have to go through a test. We have to interview the parents. She goes, really? I say, yeah, absolutely. She goes, I'd like to get that interview. I said, okay, we have 10 a.m. on Thursday or 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Which do you prefer? And she goes, well, it have to be in the evening because my husband works. I said, no. If it's important for your husband to have your child in the best school in the Western United States, he will take time off of work and he will come here with you. Otherwise, just put your name at the bottom of the list. 2 years from now, we'll call you and see if you're still interested. Well, they made an appointment. He took time off work to come in. Now all the black belts are looking at me. Now what's he going to do? so I had to. I actually asked some rather difficult questions just to throw them off the hook. Throw them off the track here. We ended up taking their kid in, and he was the worst child I've ever had in the school. Oh my God. I mean, he was constantly doing all the wrong stuff and aggravating things. Well, arm locks and face plants into the mat and dragging him around like that, he didn't like that. He liked the attention, but he sure didn't like all the pain and suffering that went along with that. And he ended up being one of the best students, and he cleaned up his act, graduated with a 4.0 out of high school. I saw him and his dad a couple years after that in Home Depot. They ran over, hugged me, thanked me. He says, I was destined to be an awful kid. I'd been in gangs, and you changed my life. And that's an interesting story from the scarcity play. But again, it's we have to practice those things because you're going to fight like you train. And so the same thing is going to be true with us. So Frank, it's on you to figure out how we're going to do that, I think.
And we thank you. No pressure.
Yeah.
By the way, a couple of things. People want what they can't have, and people value what they pay for.
Oh, absolutely.
If they pay more, they value it more. So ever since I've been in the software business, I really dislike discounting anything. If I charge a fair price for what I offer, I won't discount. I'll increase the value of what I do. I know I want to talk about one thing which I wanted to mention. I went off track. Number 8, I talked to package and name it. This is not for everybody, and I believe it can be for everybody, but for the right person, let me tell you how valuable this package and name it is. Number 1, it allows you to charge a premium for your service because no one else does it. Okay, which is cool. I mean, and that's good. And it makes you more desirable because they want what they can't have. If it is packaged properly, and if it is documented properly, when you are ready to retire or sell your business, this package and name thing can be your 401k. This can be this can be a residual income that'll support you as you go to wherever you're going to go to in your retirement years, because people will pay handsomely for something that has already been done that they would like to copy. Okay, it's up to us, the creators here that are on this podcast, that are doing the hard work of documenting, packaging, and name what we do. Peter, for example, with his 4 pillars. When Peter's ready to sell out or retire, whatever it is, he can take all of that stuff and sell it to every website developer in the world if they're interested. And that could be nice residual income. So the proper package and name it for the right people can be your 401k. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's it.
On that same note, let's go back to that networking group. We were hosted at the Terra Lago golf resort area,
Yes.
and the head pro was there. So I have another product called vision1golf.com, and I told him this story. And I think, Frank, I developed this story, of course, without you, but I think it works. And basically, my story for that is I'll roll 10 strokes off your game in 4 hours or less, or you don't pay me. And I'm not a mechanic, or I've never played golf in my life. Isn't that an interesting story? Boy, you know, golf is not a pull a right elbow. No, I couldn't do that if I had to. Well, how's that work? You know, I was all over it, wasn't he, Frank?
Yes, yes, it is, and we're going to follow up with that later, and create a mini 401k for you, Peter.
Good. You know,
Yes.
but part of the reason I was going to tell that story was, in fact, packaging it. Right.
Yes.
One of the pieces of the package is I told him, I said, you know, all these golfers, they'll buy a new club that scientifically designed to move you another 10 yards, right, when you drive, and it doesn't work. They don't tailor-made the rest of them. They don't buy that back from you, right? But I packaged it in such a way, you know, you don't pay me. If I don't do exactly what I tell you I'm going to do, you don't pay me. Money back guarantee. There's nothing in the golfing industry that has that. So I packaged it that way. You know, so it's a package deal like that.
Yeah. And there's power, and everybody, not the extent of your Vision One Golf, but everybody listening to this podcast in the business does something different. And if we, or you, without me, can make it successful, even more successful, and you package it, people want to buy what you. Your competitors, when you're ready to go, will pay you to learn what you did. And there's your 401k, and that's
well, and that also harkens back to find your own niche. Don't work with your competitors' niche and try to go head on head with them. Find your own niche, and do that. You know, the first pillar I call winning. Everybody likes to win, right?
Right.
Well, competitive analysis will give you a strategy, a unique way to approach your own unique niche, and force them to chase you into your niche, as opposed to you chasing them into theirs. You know, first pillar, winning. But yes.
And I think PalmSpringsSport.com is a great example of that. Again, in Palm Springs areas, there's at least 20 to 30 tourism websites that give the information. But I wanted to bring together a sport and fitness site that it's all in one site. So you do not have to go to other sites to find your hiking, or other sites to find your tennis, or your other sites to find your golf, and so forth. So what I try to do is bring together all the recreational events and fitness of the area. So I think I tried to do that, Peter.
Yeah, hey, Mark, by the way, we're hearing it clicking. Is your controller on the end of your mic by any chance hitting your laptop?
How's that? Is it a little better?
Yeah, I kept hearing this Morse code going on.
I think it's tapping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was curious to find out where that was. So yeah, absolutely true.
Yeah.
I just like to jump in for a second.
Please do, Dick. Be too quiet.
Well, I've been listening, which I do a lot, but I think. I'm on board with the 27-second story, the whole thing. But I think we have to bring out. I think the timing of when you tell that story is very, very important. In other words, I don't think you go to a networking group. I don't think you walk up to guys and say, I want to tell you a story. I think you have to let them talk for a while so you get a feel for them, and it may tell you what one of the clubs you want to pull out of your bag to tell us what story you want to tell. So I think, at least with me, okay, I'll just say it with me, what I have learned in my year and a half or so of doing networking is I have a higher degree of success when I don't talk for the first 2 or 3 minutes. I let the other person talk and tell me about themselves, and then I have a better idea of how to approach them and what story I should tell them. So I think it's, at least from my point of view, I think it's very important that people who are listening to this realize that you have to. The timing of the story is very important, I guess, is what I'm going to say. What I'm trying to say.
Dick, true. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I agree. The only time you have to talk first is when you're on stage and you're the keynote speaker. Right. And people are all sitting down saying, what's he going to say? Mm-hmm. You are much better off. And by the way, people love to talk about themselves, as we all know. Let them speak first, and then that'll tell you which club out of your golf bag is the best to start off your conversation. Absolutely true. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you did that in spades the other night at the golf club, the golf course.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
The other thing I want to bring up too, and Phil, unmute yourself here because I have a question for you. The stories that Frank essentially is helping us with, there's got to be an analogy. You've done a lot of direct mail campaign stuff, and you got one underway with your dentist. Are you telling a story in that as well?
I am. In
And,
fact, it's an 8-page sales letter, and
Yeah.
6 of the pages tell a story about the outcome of one of my clients.
who, by the way, got 122 new clients in 6 months, right?
Right.
And I don't know how you weighed in on that, but I do know that from I worked in the dental world for some time. Each patient equates to $10,000 to $20,000 of income in their lifetime. So I mean, you do the math. 122 new clients. That's $1.2 million as a minimum in their lifetime of increase in 6 months. That's pretty darn good. But the story you tell, right? You do tell it in a sales newsletter, right?
I do tell it because if I were to scream what my services were, no one would be interested. Like Frank says, no one cares. You have to speak benefit, and you have to put it into a story format. And then part of what Richard says, there has to be some conversational layering of when is the appropriate time to tell your story. Richard, I think that by letting your suspect, I would call him, speak first, you're able to quickly react to exactly what those trigger words or keywords that are coming out of that person's mouth that you're talking to. You're able to create a response to them based on what that conversation is about. I mean, we all can't, unfortunately, live by scripts unless we're putting it into paper format, right? Or if you're speaking on stage, like Frank was saying. There's a great trick that I use. I ask questions to whomever I'm talking to, and basically they're questions that may or may not lead into another scenario that I've already trained to answer. But to get more of an idea on what some of these questions are that you can ask, there's a great book that I've read, and it's called The Secrets of Question-Based Selling. And here, I'll put it up really quick. I don't know if you've ever heard about it, by Tom Fries, but they're just some extra questions on a psychic approach that you can take that eventually leads them to asking you for that core story. And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I understand, Richard, that you just can't go off and just start to introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm Phil. Guess what? Let me tell you about this. No, as much as I would love to do that, it just there's that's even more awkward than silence itself when you're trying to converse with somebody. So I would love to hear what Peter and Frank might advise as to some trigger words given by the person you're talking to. When is a good time to reveal that, and what type of questions can we start asking in order to lead up to that 27-second story?
I'd like to just jump in on that because, to me, in what I've practiced my whole career, when I got into selling, I realized that listening was more important than talking. And so when I sit down or I meet somebody, I truly listen to what they're saying. And you qualify a person fairly quickly. I spoke to one gentleman the other night for 5 minutes, and I realized for me to continue talking would be a waste of my time and his, because he wasn't interested in anything I would have to say. It was all he did, all talking about himself. So that's fine, and you be polite, and you move on. But when you meet someone that you least I could tell when I'm getting a reception that the person wants to talk to me. That's step one. So if they want to talk to you, that's great. Step two is I usually start out by saying, so tell me your story. What do you do? And from there, I listen to what the gentleman or the lady is saying, and you listen to what they're talking about, and the trigger words come from them. To Frank's point, in one of his 8 points there is, the person is going to say, well, geez, I wonder if he could help me, or could he do that for me? That kind of tells me what I should say to them as far as, hey, here's let me tell you a story, and I tell a story that relates to what this guy's concerns are. So I'm a big believer in strike the conversation, make it comfortable, make it relaxed, get the person talking about themselves, and hopefully, and most times, they will tell you what story you should tell them. That's how I approach it.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the things that happened, Frank was standing right next to me. I think you were too, Dick. Here's this golf pro, right, that's running the place, and I turned to him because I want to sell him Vision 1 golf, right? And I turned to him, you ever three-putt? He goes, all the time. I said, how many balls do you use when you practice putting? 3. I said, bingo.
Yeah.
You're training wrong.
Yeah.
There's only one ball out on the course, right?
Yeah.
You don't need. You're training yourself to hit it 3 times to get it in the cup.
Yeah.
So a bingo.
Well, how many times do you hit a cue ball, right?
Well, yeah. Well, but in their case, the golfers train wrong. They drop 3 balls out there, and the first ball tells them either the speed of the green. The second ball tells you the lie. The third one goes in the cup. They think, wow, they're doing great. They get out on the course and they 3-putt all the time, and they wonder what's wrong with that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you taught your body you have to hit it 3 times, and you're not real. It's just like I also asked him, as you recall, Frank, what's the object of a 30-foot putt? And the classic answer is to get it close to the hole so the second time it goes in. Wrong answer. It's to get it in the cup the first time. And if you miss, you're close enough the second time. But you're never going to get it in the cup the first time if you don't aim for it. It's like, who taught you that? It's like a rubber yardstick or something. It just stretches and moves around. But so trigger words. In my case, I lure them into asking the obvious question that they've experienced, and then I tell them the woes of their ways.
Yeah.
To respond a little bit to Phil's comment and to pile on to what Dick said, and I agree with Dick. With the 27, you have a warehouse of 27-second stories that you've developed with or without my help. You've developed them, and you have them in your warehouse up here in your brain. The person you talk to will tell you what story you should pull out just by listening to what they're concerned about, what they're doing, what they're not doing, and you'll say, oh, that's this one. You go to your warehouse, pull out that story, tell them in 27 seconds, and if it fits them, they'll react. If it doesn't, that's okay. You're not going to sell everybody, and you shouldn't prospect everybody. Qualify, attract, close. Boom.
Hey, that's the 3-putt system of doing all of
Of
this.
sales.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I think I'm using the question approach, Phil. I ask questions that I know what the answer is, and lure them into the right answer afterwards. Yes, go ahead, Dick.
Well, I was just going to say, if Peter's talking to someone, they have a website, and he tells his Doug and Annalisa story, and the guy is saying, my sales are doubling every year on this, so I don't need that. But if he listens to the guy and to Peter's point, he maybe asks the question, so what are your concerns about your website? Let him tell you, and then Peter can come back and tell another story. He can address it. But the Doug and Annalisa story may not be appropriate for that particular guy, but Peter has 8 other stories that one of them are going to work. So that's why I think that listening and asking questions is a very, very important thing, so you can determine which way to take it.
No, I agree, Dick. One of the other questions on websites are conversion, one of the other pillars, right?
Right.
And you may, I have all the traffic I need. Well, are you converting those traffics to paying clients? Well, no,
and
I'm
how many
not.
times we talk to people and they don't even know what that means, Peter.
Right.
Well,
they don't even know what that means.
But I agree. But what we're assuming in this particular scenario is that in fact he's got all the traffic. He doesn't need any more traffic.
Right.
Well, okay, so the traffic you do have, what's your conversion rate? And
Right.
if they don't know what their conversion rate is, or they don't understand it, say, if you have 100 visitors a day, how many do you convert to clients?
Right.
One. Well, wouldn't you like 25?
Yeah.
Scientifically design your site
Right.
for conversion.
Right.
I mean,
What
you
kind,
spend all that
of
money to get
revenue? What kind of revenue are you getting from social networking? But that's
all of that.
Yeah, you've got to qualify the person first.
Yeah.
And I
And
think that's
and maybe this is something, Frank, that we could work on later too. Is when you give your talk or give your 27, when to be quiet, when to just close your mouth and let the client dictate.
Oh, that's very easy. On the 28th second, you shut up.
yeah.
Because you could
Very
say
easy.
too much,
No,
right?
no. Let's go back. You have
Uh-huh.
27-second story. When you tell your story, you shut up.
Yeah.
They will be uncomfortable with the silence, and they will react one way or the other, and you'll know whether you have a prospect or not.
And that's something I have to work on.
Yeah.
What, shutting up?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I get so
No.
excited. With me, I get so excited. And Peter and I talk about this. We are very excited people. We get involved. So I get really excited with the client, and I just want to talk to him in a great way. But I find myself saying too much. So then I say, Mark, zip it.
Yeah, there's a saying in sales that once you made the sale, shut up.
Yeah.
Because you're
Right.
going to buy it all back. Well, I'll
Right.
give you this. So I'll throw that on top. And by the time you realize the order that you just took, you gave them all this other stuff on top of that. You're not making any money.
Yeah.
Shut up. Make the sale. Shut up. Sign
And
up
that's
the
what I'm
dotted
trying
line.
to
Get the
work
heck out of there.
Well, I used to counsel the sales guys that worked for me. That selling is 80% listening and 20% talking. Listening and observing and 20% talking. I used to learn more just sit and listen in a purchasing agent's office, listen to what he had to say, look around his office, see what his likes are, his dislikes. You could tell by the pictures on the wall. What's this guy interested in? And it's just. To me, people have this impression of a sales guy who just walks in and never shuts up, and that's the guy that you don't want to be. So.
Yeah.
I mean, in my bookstore, when the salesmen come in, they come in with all this, blabber, and like you said, Dick, I just care about their product, and can I sell their product, and what's their price point, what's their turnaround, and so that's what I'm concerned with when a salesman comes into my store.
Yeah.
Or used to be anyway.
Yeah. Now I'm on the other end.
Right.
All right, guys, we're running long. Anybody want to weigh in on anything else before we close it off?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we did.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks, everybody, and say goodnight, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
Good night, Dick.
All right, stop on the broadcast. Hang on.
Yeah.